Hi guys, welcome back to Astrophotography Quest. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you 10 different tips for beginners that will help you improve your astrophotography photos. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. Tip number 1, plan your photos. If you don't plan your photos, you're probably going to have a really boring session because honestly, if you don't plan your photos, you're not going to get very good images. And that's just the truth, because when I don't plan my photos, I seem to get terrible images. I never am happy with the results. I just don't like them. So what I mean by planning is you have to actually go to the Weather Channel, search up what the weather's going to be like. You have to plan when the clear skies are, not just jump out and do it, especially if you have a heavier rig. I would recommend you plan and plan and plan. Don't just rush out there and do it, because then you end up not getting good photos because you don't polar align correctly, you don't have the time because you're rushing. You know what I mean? So that's why I recommend planning your sessions. So remember when I said don't rush? Well, tip number 2 is have patience and take as many exposures as possible. That way you get the best image out of your rig as you can possibly get. Now, of course, you're not going to get a great image right away when you're first beginning astrophotography, but as you keep adding those images onto your collection of images, after you keep stacking them and stacking them and stacking them, and, you know what I mean? So once you keep stacking them, the more you stack, the better the noise ratio, the better SNR, signal to noise ratio, the better images you're going to get overall. And this is why I recommend having patience. That way you can properly calibrate things, make things perfect in the way you want it to be, make things not trail for your exact exposure time you're taking. So make sure to have patience. Now this is going to sound like a hard one. Tip number 3 is do not go cheap. If you go cheap, you'll end up getting pretty bad results, I'm telling you, and it just gets boring after a while. So if you go cheap on your equipment, like let's say you get the no mount with the DSLR, but if you don't use a DSLR, you just use your phone, you know, type thing like that. If you go really cheap, you're just not going to get good results, and you're not going to get anywhere close to those photos you see online. And that is entirely true. No matter how good your skill level is, you're pretty much not going to get like deep sky objects. You might get the Milky Way to look really good, but I'm talking for like deep sky objects. If you're going to photograph multiple different objects in the sky, like other galaxies besides our own, you're not going to get very good photos without having a tracking mount and a good, solid whole setup altogether. And that is going to lead me to my 4th tip, which is get a good mount. If you don't get a good mount, you're definitely not going to have good photos because they're going to trail everywhere. You won't be able to take long exposure, especially from your backyard. So if you do not decide to get a mount, if you don't decide to get a mount, then I would recommend going to a dark site all the time, because any photo you get in a light polluted sky with no mount is going to look like crap. You know, it's just not going to look good. So I would recommend definitely getting a good mount. If you have the money to spend on a mount, I'd recommend getting a really good one, because I had the Ioptron Skygetter Pro. It didn't do too well for me, so I had to upgrade eventually to a more expensive mount. Okay, so my 5th tip is to use your resources. So for example, a star app, a field of view app, kind of like astronomy.tools and Stellarium, or Stellarium, I don't know how to say it right. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Well, the point of using these apps is to really help you get a good, precise idea of where you're pointing, what your field of view is going to look like, what your image is going to look like in the end. It gives you good perspective and idea. Use your resources. Use Astrobin if you can. Use Stellarium. Use Astronomy. Use whatever you can to help plan out your sessions. Make the informed decisions about what photos you're going to be taking, and help your images get better every single time you take them. So for tip number 6, I would recommend to do the same target over and over and over again. The reason for this is that when you do the same target over and over again, you can stack your images on top of each other, and you can get much better data each time. Keep improving on that same photo, add it to your existing data, and get a beautiful image. Now, I know multiple people will want to do the different targets every night, you know, different targets and different subjects. But from experience, I recommend doing the same one for about a week. And this will really help that photo improve, especially if you're a beginner. It will really help, and I'm still a beginner myself. But I would recommend improving your photos each time with stacking images of each night, if that makes sense. Alright, so tip number 7 for me, if you're a regular photographer, I would recommend not modding your camera right away. For this reason is because mainly it does really improve those emission nebulae and stuff like that. But for normal viewing, like galaxies and stuff like that, for normal nebulae that are not really emission, I wouldn't really recommend modding your camera right away just because of the color distortion and stuff like that. It just won't look right anymore, especially if you love wildlife photography. You might not like the effects of modding your camera, like you might lose autofocus and stuff like that. I just don't recommend it for a beginner that's just getting into astrophotography, though it's previously a photographer and still is a photographer. So here's a really important tip. Do not give up over bad images. Everybody gets these, especially in the winter. When I used to go out in February and January, my images used to be terrible because I just didn't have enough time. It was freezing, especially if you start astrophotography in the winter. This is going to be very disappointing, your first results. So I do not recommend giving up, especially in the winter. And if you want to give up, that's not a very good idea because it's a very fun hobby. You always find something new to learn. Because actually, one time there was about a time I was about to give up, but then I learned something new and it really helped me. And then I got amazing images after that again. And then I just keep learning new things all the time. So I recommend you do the same in order to improve your astro photos and don't give up. So tip number 9 for me is plan a trip to a dark site. Now, oh my gosh, the first time I was to a dark site, it was amazing. From your backyard usually doesn't look that great, especially if you're only like a Bortle 6 or above. You're not going to see much. I live in a Bortle 7. But if you plan a trip to a dark site, you'll get amazing results, especially as a beginner. You'll love the results you're getting. It's just so beautiful. I do recommend going to a dark site if you can. Now, in order to find a dark site near you, I like lightpollutionmap.info. It's a great website. It really helps to get amazing photos and plan out where exactly you're going. That way you know what to expect, what light pollution class you expect, and you know where to go. So I really recommend this website, and I recommend going to a dark site if you can because they're amazing. But unfortunately for me, I don't have many around where I live, but certain states actually have light pollution laws which will really help in finding dark sites. So hopefully that helped. Alright, so tip number 10, my final tip is to ask your community. I love asking the community because it really helps me to get motivated. There's like so many nice people in the astrophotography community. It's not like some communities where people are all like mean and nasty. It's not like that. Astrophotography community is great. So there's a lot of people, very helpful people on here, and I would definitely recommend checking out websites like Cloudy Nights. Definitely, those people on there are really nice. Just make sure you go to the right forum because the moderators aren't usually too happy if you post in the, wrong forum. But I'm sure they'll understand. So make sure to if you're getting into astrophotography, go to beginning deep sky imaging forum. That will really help, and just ask a question you have or something. Though they are very helpful people. They ask questions back like what equipment you use, stuff like that, and then they give you hopefully a clear, solid answer. Once they get your information, like equipment-wise and stuff like that. So, they're a very helpful community. Alright, that's it for this video. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment box below, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and clear skies. Until next time.